just so we can keep the aisles clear. All right. So, I'm super excited about this. We do have a special host for the panel. So I have to say, and you guys will all agree, he runs the absolute best convention.
That's right.
And I should also say, the best party in the world. I am so honored to bring to the stage at this time, he's the man behind Spooky Empire. Make some noise for the one and only Peter!
Thank you guys, thank you, man. Thank you for coming out every year and everything like that. Spooky Empire wouldn't be anything without you guys. I want to get this Q&A going, and I'm going to do it this time. So this is my first time, so be patient. So everybody, stand on up, everybody. Let's give a loud applause to the one and only Alice Cooper. Thank you very much for coming, Spooky Empire. We always love having you and everything like that.
Thank you.
Back in the 80s, I got to see you play, and it was an amazing. I was at the Poughkeepsie Civic Center.
We play anywhere they pay us, you know. That was, when we were kids, you know, in your high school band, you'd play any place you can play. That was it for 4 hours a night, doing covers, and that's how your band gets good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's, Beatles did that, Stones did that, everybody did that. Yeah.
So the one thing I always wanted to know is, like, in the 80s, you know, like Ozzy Osbourne got a perm and dyed his hair blonde, and then Gene Simmons would wear a pink blouse. Why didn't you go that way?
How dare they? I used to go on stage in early 70s, and I think this is how we got our reputation, the whole band. We were more Clockwork Orange than Clockwork Orange. I'd have leather pants on, and I'd have my girlfriend's slip, but it was all torn with blood all over it. And that's how the show started. You know, so the audience would go, "What happened?" You know, and there was the guys in the band had hair down to here, makeup on, but it wasn't elegant makeup, it was smeared. You know, so it was just like everything about us was an insult. and that's what I think started the whole theatricality of the Alice Cooper thing. Then we took it a step further and said, why don't we make the lyrics come to life? If you say, "Welcome to my nightmare," don't just say it, give them the nightmare. You know, and that's where theatrics were born right there.
You had like a lot of interesting friends back in the day, and how did they feel about being with Alice Cooper? Like, you know, John Lennon and all these big, you know.
Oh, they got it. They got it.
They got it.
Yeah.
Like they were like, "Oh, Alice Cooper's my friend too." You know, like
yeah.
You were invited to their little club.
Well, those guys are the guys that actually saw what we were doing.
Yeah.
You know, they could see that you can't be a theatrical band if you don't have the songs.
Yeah.
You have to be a band first. You have to actually be. We would rehearse 8 hours a day, 7 hours on the music, and 1 hour on the theatrics. Because the music, if you weren't as good as Led Zeppelin, you better not be up there.
Yeah.
You know, you better be able to play like those guys, and that was the difference between, I think, then and now. A lot of bands now are very manufactured, whereas these bands were very organic. I mean, they started in the blues and Chuck Berry, and you know, we learned every Beatles song, every Rolling Stones song, every Yardbird song, and that's how we learned how to play. And then we started writing our own music. You know, that's a basis there that you have to go through.
But like Jimi Hendrix hooked you up, right? Did
Yeah.
he hook you up with your manager, which is an incredible person, Shep? He's just what he's done for like the industry, like the Cooks and everything like that. It's just amazing. Well, he hooked you up though.
I've been with Shep 55 years.
Yeah.
And we don't have a contract. We never did. You know, and which is he's still my manager, and we live like 5 houses apart in Maui somewhere. But the thing about that era was all of my big brothers and big sisters died at 27. I mean, Jim Morrison was, Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, all those people. They were our big brothers. You know, we'd be sitting around getting high with them and drinking and everything. And the next thing you know, 27, gone.
Yeah.
I mean, that was weird. And the weird thing was that almost everyone that died at 27 was some kind of a world beater. They were people that really mattered. It was a weird situation for people to live fast, die young, and have a good-looking corpse. That's pretty much what it was.
Did like Frank Sinatra and everybody, did they hang out and party with you?
Oh yeah. Well, see, everybody saw our show differently. Salvador Dali comes to the show,
Yeah.
and he sees it as surrealism.
Uh-huh.
Groucho Marx comes to the show and sees it as vaudeville. Vincent Price sees it as comedy horror. So I mean, all those guys that were in show business all their life, they were not shocked by Alice Cooper at all. The audience was, but they weren't.
Yeah. There's a lot of artists right now doing their farewell tours and everything like that. And I just recently saw you with Rob Zombie and stuff, and you were kicking ass still. And actually, you opened up for Motley Crue on their farewell tour, and you blew them away. It's incredible. It's incredible how you are still out there doing it, and these other guys are giving up already. So, and you were there before everybody.
Yeah, quitters.
Yeah.
Pretty soon it's just gonna be Mick and me. I'm a lifer.
Yeah.
There's certain guys that are lifers. I started when I was 15, and I'm 76 now.
Yeah.
And I've never felt better in my life. I get up on stage and do 2 hours and never. I'm the only one not breathing hard.
No, it's incredible. Like what you put into a show. Still, you don't half-ass it at all.
No, our show has always been theatrics, and there's the problem now. The biggest problem is the set list.
Yeah.
Because there's about 12 to 13 songs that you have to do.
Or we'll get mad.
You cannot not do those songs,
Yeah.
And then there's maybe 5 theatrical songs that you have to do. Then it only gives you maybe 2 songs that you can go to all these 30 albums and say, okay, let's shock the audience with that song. Let's do this song, that one. And but it doesn't give us much leeway to if we do a new album, we can maybe pick one song off that album to go in.
But with like YouTube and everything, we're not getting shocked anymore. So we're just looking at your performance now. Like Broadway shows. Like you were doing Jesus Christ Superstar. That was like amazing. And,
well, they always pictured Herod as being this roly-poly kind of dumb guy. Where I always thought he should be Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
He should be this condescending villain. It's Jesus. And that's so I played him like that.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And it was fun to play, except that on that show, you had one take. It was live in front of 1 billion people. And you had to get it right the first time. So that was a little bit different than doing a movie or doing a stage show.
Did you like working with some of those people that were in that cast?
Yeah, oh yeah, they were. I probably had the easiest time because I'm used to working live in front of an audience.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of those people were filmed, people where they could take, let's retake that, let's retake that, let's retake that. You had to do it once and right.
Yeah.
The whole, and there's Weber and Rice right there, the 2 guys that wrote it. Eye level, so you better get it right. That was fun to do.
Excellent. Did you ever have a favorite performance? I know you were like really famous for like killing that chicken on stage and everything, but did you have
which I never killed. Okay. Can I tell you the chicken story, please? Yes. All right. So, the Toronto Peace Festival. We go on between John Lennon and the Doors. And we open these, feather pillows, and you hit them with CO2 cartridges, and it's a blizzard on stage. And John Lennon's over here, and the Doors over there going, yeah, this is great. And all of a sudden, I look down, there's a chicken on stage. I didn't bring the chicken. Nobody I know brings a chicken to a show. They go, I got my keys, I got my tickets, I got my chicken. And so I looked down, there's a chicken, and we have white feathers. I went, oh. Somebody in the audience brought a chicken and put it on stage. I said, well, being from Detroit, I've never been on a farm in my life, okay? It had wings, it had feathers, it should fly. Chickens don't fly as much as they plummet. So I took the chicken and I went, heaved it out in the audience, and the audience tore it to pieces. The Toronto Peace Festival. The capper to the story is that the first 6 rows were all in wheelchairs. They're the ones that killed the chicken. Threw it back on stage. And next day, Frank Zappa, who produced us at the time, he says, "Did you kill a chicken on stage last night?" And I went, "No." And he goes, "Well, don't tell anybody, they love it." So that's when I realized the audience was looking for a villain. There were all these rock heroes and no villains. There were all these Peter Pans and no Captain Hook. And I went, I will gladly be Captain Hook. And you know, that's where it was really born. That's where the idea of a rock villain that was funny and could deliver the music, but at the same time scare you, you know.
Do you, since you were like the first villain in rock and roll, do you, like, people that are doing it now, how do you feel about that now? I mean,
well, they're all friends, you know.
I get that they're all friends, but in the back of your mind, you're like, man, like, that's my gig.
That never bothered me. You know, everybody wanted there to be, when Bowie came out, Bowie used to come to our shows and see the theatrics. And he would say, he'd tell his band, this is what we have to do. And then he became, you know, Space Oddity and all that thing. But there was never any, I never saw him as a threat to me. He was doing something totally different. So I like that. I like the fact that we had opened the doors to the fact that you could be a theatrical band and make hit records. That was something that never happened before. And, you know, then Kiss, I mean, we told Kiss where to buy their makeup. You know, they were no shock to us. We knew them, you know. And I told them, I said, don't do our makeup. If you do our makeup, they're going to kill you. So they went with the kabuki makeup. And they were very smart. They did it totally different than we did it, you know.
You know what's also interesting, how you're Alice on stage, but then you have another persona outside of on stage. But like Marilyn Manson and like Rob Zombie, they're always Marilyn Manson or Rob Zombie.
You'd be surprised. Rob Zombie, we toured together. In fact, we're touring together this summer.
Yeah.
He's like my little brother. And I'll have a dressing room next to his. And he's got the worst disco music playing. I'm talking 70s horrible disco. And I'll go, I say, what are you doing? You know, and he's going, this stuff gets me up for the show. Really? Every lead guitar, everybody in rock has a different idiosyncrasy. Roger Daltrey fly fishes, practices fly fishing. Peter Frampton irons clothes before the show. So we just throw our laundry in there and just say, finish this up. I throw knives. Yeah, so I have like a knife board there and I throw knives. I'm pretty good. I can put about 20 knives in an area about that big. But that's how I just get ready for the show. And I watch really bad kung fu. I mean, not good kung fu. I'm not talking about, not CD movies, you know. And for some reason, that's become my idiosyncrasy for stage. But, you know, Marilyn Manson, all these bands, Slipknot and everything, they all pay tribute. They all say, you know, this is what we got.
Very respectful.
Yeah, but I mean, that never, to me, that was never a threat to me. You know, we had already done what we did, and we keep doing it. And I always look at it this way: we got to keep doing it better than them.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be. I don't want to be thought of as, oh, let's go see Alice because that would be nice to see this nice old man play. You know, and when people say that, I go, I'm going to blow you so far off the stage. You're not even going to.
No, it's absolutely true.
Well, I surround myself with the best players. You know, if you look at our band, you know, Anita Strauss and Ryan Roxy and these guys, they're all best friends. And nobody's ever there's no ego going on. There's nobody worried about how many solos you get and all that. Everybody can't wait to get on stage and play the show. Same thing with the Hollywood Vampires. Johnny Depp, Joe Perry, and myself. We have never had an argument in 8 years. We just get up on stage and play, and everybody you know, and you can tell that we're having fun up there.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, if you've never heard Johnny Depp play guitar, he's a killer guitar player. He's really a good guitar player.
Yeah. Talk about the vampires. You told me a story one time about that you were recording with the vampires at the Foo Fighters.
It was at Johnny's house. Actually.
Johnny's house?
Yeah.
Yeah, you said there was a special guest that showed up. You want to tell that story? I don't know if
That's
you told
true.
me that story and I love it. So
It's such a great story because it just shows you it doesn't matter how big you are or how big you think you are. So there's Johnny on guitar, Joe Perry from Aerosmith on guitar. I forget, the room was full of rock stars playing this one song. Paul McCartney walks in and sits down at the piano. And the piano's facing the wall, we're all over here. You know, and he goes, okay, you guys should do this song. If you want it, anytime coming. I said, okay. So as soon as he turned back around, we all went. We all did. As soon as he turned around, we were all, okay. Do that, you know. But you're in a room with Paul McCartney. It doesn't get any better than that. And we're all like little kids because he was the Beatle. You know, he was the music. And he's just the nicest guy in the world. If he came to your house for dinner, he'd do the dishes. I mean, that's who he is. And he was immediately a vampire. He's a vampire now. And the funny thing was I said, well, you have to go through the initiation. And he goes, what's that? And I said, well, there's some red vines, licorice. I said, and there's guacamole. You have to dip it in there. And he said, okay. And he goes and he does it. And he says, when did you guys do that? Well, we never did that. Crazy? You think we're nuts?
That's awesome. There's rumor that you introduced Brian Wilson to John Lennon.
Oh, yeah. Well, Brian Wilson, you know, who is another, there's two guys probably in the business, maybe three, that are considered maestros. I mean, best of the best. Frank Zappa was one. Frank Zappa could direct the Philharmonic Orchestra because he knew more about music than anybody on rock and roll. Brian Wilson. And we're sitting after the Grammys one night, and it's Iggy, myself, John, you know, it's everybody sitting there. And I hear, psst, Alice. And I look around, and it's Brian Wilson. I went, hey, Brian. And he says, come here. I go over and he says, introduce me to John Lennon. I went, I know these guys have met before. I mean, you know, they've talked about, the Beatles talked about that they wouldn't have done Sgt. Pepper had they not heard Pet Sounds. So I went, okay. You know, John, this is Brian Wilson. And John looks at me and he goes, oh, hello, Brian. How are you? Good to see you. He said, you know, I've been a big fan all your life. Oh, thank you. He leaves. About half an hour later, psst, Bernie Taupin was sitting there. He goes, introduce me to John Lennon. Bernie looks at me, I went, you know, he says, John, he said, this is Bernie, this is Brian Wilson. And John goes, oh, hello, Brian. How are you? And as soon as he leaves, he looks at me, he says, he's not well, you know. But yeah, I mean, it was very weird, you know. But Brian Wilson, again, you listen to what he's done. He's Beethoven, you know.
Yeah.
He's so brilliant that it's. I think he hears so much stuff in his head that it's almost maddening, you know.
Yeah, I got to work with Brian Wilson one time. It was just a weird experience because he's
very
quiet.
Yeah.
Very just and it was just there, and he didn't wear shoes.
Never. Yeah.
Never wear shoes. He just cut his nails. It was
Yeah.
just like it was just a whole weird vibe.
Yeah,
You know,
it's-
always remember that in my head.
His piano in his house, he has a piano, but it's in a sandbox. So when you sit in it, you're on the beach, you know. And he always has Pet Sounds on his 72 track thing.
Yeah.
You can go in and mix it the way you want to hear it. So there's Iggy and I'm mixing it in there, you know, slowly, you know, pushing up the dogs, barking and all this stuff. And that's his toy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever write music with like some of your friends like that? Like you're a very good songwriter and everything like that. And have you ever just like for fun just sit down and write songs?
When I got out of the hospital, I stopped drinking 41 years ago.
Yeah.
And I came out of the hospital, and Bernie Taupin was my best friend. So him being a lyricist, me being a lyricist, I said, wait until I tell you about some of the people I met. And I said, I want to do an album called From the Inside. And it's about all these characters. So Bernie and I wrote this whole album that was really, really interesting, really good. Maybe the most musical album. David Foster produced it, you know, and it had everybody on it. But every single song was about somebody I had met in there. And of course, we exaggerated them, you know, and everything. But Bernie and I would, you know, it would be, he would write a line, and then I would write a line. And so we would try to trap each other, you know. And he wrote a line that ended in the word orange. And he says, there's no rhyme for orange. I said, really? Because I had a door hinge that was orange. So I left him with month. There's no rhyme for month. I don't care, think about it. There's no rhyme for month.
Is it difficult to write songs with other people, or do you just like doing it on your own?
No, it's fun. It's actually fun.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're pretty much on the same wavelength as they are. Here's the name of the song. It's called Millie and Billy. Millie chopped up her husband and put him in a thing and sent him somewhere so she could be with Billy. I said, oh, well, that writes itself. I mean, you know, you start with the chorus, and then you start reinforcing until you get to the chorus. You know, how did this all happen? And, you know, she's talking about, you know, chopped up in cellophane. Guess love makes you do funny things.
Yeah.
That was the punchline for the whole song.
That's great. Hey, if you guys want to ask some questions out there, anybody want to ask some questions?
And no math, okay?
Please, no math. Yeah, come on up here. Right there. You ready?
Hello, Alice. My name's Rihanna, and I have a really good question for if you had to be a movie character and replace their lives, which movie would you take, and which movie character would you become instead of this life you have now?
I certainly probably wouldn't be a hero. But I wouldn't mind, you know, maybe a sympathetic Jack the Ripper. Nobody's ever looked at the soft side of Jack the Ripper, you know. Yeah, I think I played Jack the Ripper pretty well. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Thank you.
Hello, Alice. My name is Larry. In 40-plus shows, I've seen you die by a giant syringe, a spike box, hanging, electrocution, and guillotine. So what's your favorite way to die? And is there something you'd like to die in you'll do yet?
Well, the wood chipper. Wood chipper, we tried. It just didn't work because the audience was covered in meat. But we tried all kinds of different, because Alice being the villain, any good play, any good book, any good movie, the villain's got to get it in the end. That's the only satisfying way that anything ends. I don't care if it's Shakespeare, I don't care what it is. So Alice needs to get it in the end, and then he always comes back with a white top hat and tail, reborn, right? We tried to do the electric chair, and that was the very first thing we did, and it didn't have any impact because there was no sudden thing to it. The guillotine was, you know, I mean, when that comes down, it misses me by 8 inches every night. And that's a 40-pound blade. And I always wanted the audience to have this feeling that they have when they go to the circus and they see a guy in a cage with lions and tigers, and he has a chair. A tiger could take that chair out in a second and kill him. And there's always that moment where you go, this really could be the night when Alice's head gets cut off. And it could, you know. So I want that element in the show. Same thing with the hanging. There's an immediate boom to it. When you can't do that with all those other things we tried, it was always either the guillotine or the hanging. You know, those are the only two things that were abrupt death right there.
Hey Alice, my name's Eric. So I know over the past decade or so you brought out like the song Clones here and there.
Yeah.
Any thought to the, you know, bringing back any of the Blackout album songs, particularly off of Dad?
Well, to explain the Blackout albums, period of about 1980 80 to 83, I may have been doing drugs. I was in the great, LA cocaine blizzard where everybody I knew was doing that. And I did 3 albums during that time that I don't remember writing, recording, or performing. Yeah. Lucky I'm still here. But, finally got a hold of myself. But those albums are always some of the most interesting albums. Zipper Catches Skin, and Dada, and
Flush the Fashion.
Flush the Fashion, Special Forces. I listen back to some of those songs that I don't remember writing, and I go, oh, that was pretty good. but I don't recommend it, okay? I don't recommend it.
Can I ask you something? You said everybody was doing it. Was there anybody not doing it?
Not that I know. No, it was pretty universal at that time, but that was easy to stop. As soon as I got to a certain point, I went, okay, that's enough. Boom, enough. And the alcohol was harder because I drank for so much longer, and it was a prop. I always had a beer in my hand.
That's what I always said, that I have a prop.
That's
I
it.
drink.
It was.
If you ever see a picture of me, I'm always carrying a beer in my hand.
Yeah, that was
a prop.
When I quit drinking, Budweiser's stock plummeted. Begged me to start drinking again. No, I always had a Budweiser in my hand, but I only drank like that much. I was never drunk. I was always on this golden buzz. Yeah. That just kind of like Dean Martin. I'm sort of the Dean Martin of rock and roll, But I was never, that stuff. And so nobody really could tell there was a problem. Even my wife, Shep, nobody really knew there was a problem because I was doing my shows, doing the interviews, doing TV, doing movies, all that stuff, and I knew all my lines. Internally, though, there was lots going on. My pancreas, everything was just, I woke up one morning and threw up blood. And my wife said, oh, party's over. And she was right.
Next.
My name is Charlie, and I was wondering, with all the greatest hits you've had, do you have a favorite song that you perform?
Well, Dwight Fry is the one that everybody, for the Straight Jacket. And to us, it was the original band. We didn't just dip into rock and roll. We listened to West Side Story. We listened to James Bond music. We listened to all kinds of stuff. And we'd watch old movies. And I always thought that Fritz in the original Frankenstein, and Renfield were the 2 scariest guys. They were the more really upsetting characters. And I said, it's the same guy who plays that. And what's his name? Dwight Fry. I said, well, he needs to get as much publicity as Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi. So we wrote the song about the ballad of Dwight Fry, who, I do it on stage with a straight jacket, and, up lighting, so it's really creepy. The whole audience feels claustrophobic. And finally when he breaks out, kills the nurse. And,
I find a lot of young people coming to the shows now. How do you feel about the next generation? Well, it's a couple of generations going to your shows.
Well, it's funny when you do Europe or Australia. We just did those, and it's a younger audience.
Yeah.
And I think that they're coming because they've heard so much about Alice Cooper and if Ozzy were there, same thing with Ozzy. And they've never really seen a theatrical show like this. Our show is not lasers and all that stuff. Our show is very sort of psychodrama.
And storytelling.
And it's storytelling, and everything focuses on this main character. So we don't use a lot of, really elaborate theatrics. All the theatrics is on stage. What happens to this character. And, to me, that I would rather do theaters than arenas.
Yeah, I did get to see you at a theater. It was Broward County, in Broward County.
Yeah.
And you did cover songs, and it was just really good. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. We did a thing with the we bring a graveyard upstage.
Yes, yeah.
So we do a little Bowie song. We do, we do everybody, Keith Moon.
And I took my daughter, and she was like, "Oh my God, this is so great!" You know, because she knew all those songs too, and it was just really good.
It's like 4 songs in the show. We're not, actually, that's how.
And not even the whole songs, right? It was just like
no, it was just a piece of it. But that's how the Hollywood Vampires was actually formed.
Oh.
I was doing Dark Shadows with Johnny Depp in London, and I had never met Johnny. And we were going to go do a jam session at a place in London called the, I think the 500 Club or the 100 Club or something like that, 100 Club. And I said, why don't you come down and play with us tonight? Because I knew he was a guitar player. So he shows up, he's got his own amp, and he killed it. Every song we played, he knew it. And afterwards, I was telling him about the Hollywood Vampires, the drinking club at the Rainbow. And he said, why don't we just put a little bar band together and, just play songs for our dead drunk friends, And Joe Perry goes, I'm in. Duff McKagan, I'm in. Pretty soon there's this all-star band, and we were just going to play bars. We played the Rainbow Room the first night. There was maybe 100 people there. The next show was Rock in Rio, 300,000 people in it. All of us have been in front of that many people, except for Johnny. Johnny was used to playing at the Revival Club, and he's looking at me. I said, Johnny, you're an actor. Yeah, I said, okay, your role in this is a rock star. You're a guitarist in a rock band. And he goes, I get it. I said, if it was 100 people or 100,000, it doesn't matter, we're doing the same show. And he killed it. He went out, he became a strutting rock star. It was great, man. You nailed it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Next question.
Hi, Mr. Cooper. I'm always fascinated, like all the songs you have from all the years. When you go do a concert and you do a lot of songs, how do you prepare for it? And how do you remember all the lyrics to all those songs?
It's called a teleprompter. Right there. And the funny thing is I hardly ever use it. But it's a security. Because, you're doing 25 songs. And there are a lot of lyrics. I mean, I wrote the lyrics, so I should know them, but you'd be surprised. I remember on on April Fool's Day at the Forum in Los Angeles, School's Out start, and I go, and I couldn't remember the first line, because I was a million miles away, and I find, oh yeah, that's right. Come on up.
Hi, Mr. Cooper. My name's Nate. I was lucky enough to get a photo op with you yesterday. I was the guy wearing the father-son shirt.
Oh, yeah.
I was curious if you had any stories about making the Sgt. Pepper movie. I've never seen you talk
One
about
of the finest movies of all time.
it. Really a masterpiece.
If you're going to do Sgt. Pepper, you do it with the Beatles. But when they approached me with it, I had just come out of the hospital, and I wanted to work sober, because I was sober now. So I wanted to see if I could work sober. And they said, there's this character named Father Son. It's like a religious leader, but he's a totally corrupt religious leader and everything. I went, okay, that sounds fun. But the only reason I took it was because I got to work with George Martin, who was doing who was producing all the songs, and I wanted to work with the Beatles producer, So, and I got to beat up the Bee Gees. That's a twofer. So I took the part, and when we saw the movie, everybody in the movie went, oh boy. It was, it's not what Sgt. Pepper should have been. But I mean, it was, for what it was interesting. Steve Martin was in it, and the funny thing was my wife was in the movie. She danced with Steve Martin on Maxwell's Silver Hammer, if you watch it, and she danced with Aerosmith on their song. So it was kind of interesting that she was in that also.
Thank you very much.
Classic movie though. Remember when Blockbuster was open and they had a section called turkeys? I was in 3 of them.
Hi, Alice and Chris.
two that was never released as a single that you thought should have been, that maybe would have, like, if that would have just been released, this album would have sold another 500,000 copies?
There's a couple of songs that I am surprised were not hits. There was a song called Lost in America that I thought was an absolute hit, and another song called Love's the Loaded Gun that I thought was a hit. And sometimes the only song I ever knew for sure was a hit was School's Out. I mean, when we finished that song, I said, if that's not a hit, I'm going to go sell shoes somewhere. And it was huge. But there's no such thing as a sure thing. There's been some records I heard, when I heard Love's the Loaded Gun, I said, oh, it's going to go straight up the charts. Nothing.
School wasn't out. You said something about School's Out. Like, when you did that, like, did you know, like, every year someone has to play that song? Like, every year, like, at the end of the year of a school year, oh, we're doing School's Out again.
Well, that was in the back of our mind. The idea was just to make the record a great record that is going to get played on the radio, not realizing it was going to be the national anthem. To this day, on the end of May, when school's out all over the world, I get emails from India, from Russia, from everywhere. Hey, school's out, man. We're playing it on it. It gets played on every school.
Yeah, when I was in high school, we'd bring a box, the old boxes,
yeah,
and we'd play School's Out on the bus while we had a huge paper fight. School's Out, and we'd be just pounding each other with paper.
Yeah.
On the bus. The drivers used to hate us.
Yeah.
But they knew every year that's what was going to happen.
It gets to the point now where teachers play it. They play it over the PA. That's the song that teachers play in almost every school.
Awesome. We got one more question, so make it a good one.
All right, this one's going to be a little bit unusual.
Okay.
Years ago, you were on The Muppet Show.
Yes.
How much creative input did you have as far as your characters and how everything went? Because I know it's fantastic working with Jim Henson, and I just love to hear something about that.
At the time, it was the biggest show in the world. I watched it. I never missed it. And I get the call, hey, they want you to be on The Muppet Show. And this was at the top of my, when I was just absolutely hated by everybody, and I went, I spent all this time building this horror image. I really want to do the show. And I said, who's been on it lately? And they said, Christopher Lee, Vincent Price. I'm in. If those guys can do the show, I can. I never had so much fun doing anything in my life. We did it in London. There was a week of rehearsal. And I gotta tell you, Miss Piggy was coming on to me. And Kermit was getting mad. And I finally told her, I said, hey, Kermit, she's a pig. But you got to the point of talking to them because they talk to you, as characters. Like, if you were sitting there, if you were a Muppet, and you'd say, what are you going to have for lunch? I said, I don't know. I said, what do you want to go for? And you're talking to a piece of felt, But they're so real that you bought right into it. So for a week, you just bought right into talking to the eagle, or you're talking to, and it was the most fun thing I ever did in my life. And as far, they would let you, if you had an idea for something, they would go right with it. Henson was so much fun. Frank Oz. This was the original guys. And they were all New York guys in London. So I felt right at home. They were just, it was truly fun. And every birthday, I still get a little porcelain Muppet for my birthday. They said they always do this. They always send you the porcelains.
That's awesome. Hey guys, we want to thank Alice Cooper for doing this. Can we all come close and we're all in a group picture together?
Look that way.
Where's our photographer right there? Oh, this way. We're going to take it this way. All right, guys. We getting everybody in here? Hurry up. We got places to go, places to see.
Otherwise, exit photo in the front.
we take this picture? Where's our photographer? Right there, let's go.
Okay, guys.
Okay,
Photos in the front, photos in the front.
smile.
You guys know I don't show up on film, right?